Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. I'm your host, Matt Rosen. Today, we're going to be revisiting one of my favorite episodes. This is episode 2, and in this episode, I'm joined by John Hudson, or as we better know him as Huddy. He is a successful logistics entrepreneur who built and sold a company out in LA before relocating and kind of starting all over again in Dallas, Texas. John's got a great definition of grit. He calls it discipline on steroids. It's not about just pushing through, in his words. It's about passion and perseverance, locked in on a long-term goal, especially when things go sideways. He shares a lot of this in his story about starting at the very bottom and working his way to the top of a logistics company, the one he sold. He also talks about opening a gym right as COVID hit and what he learned about ego and knowing when not to keep pushing. He also shares why surrounding yourself with the right people might be the most underrated grit strategy out there. So whether you're building something new, navigating a setback, trying to figure out what to do next, this conversation is really worth your time. So I hope you can listen in to episode 2. Until next week's episode, stay gritty. This is Matt Rosen, and this is The Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of The Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Howdy, everyone. This is Matt Rosen. We're here with the Grit Mindset podcast, hosted by yours truly. We're going to be talking today about grit, and one of my good buddies, John Hudson, better known as Huddy, is our guest for today's show, which is going to be the second episode of the Grit Mindset podcast. Excited to have him, so thanks for being here with us, John. You want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Matt, for having me. Again, my name's John Hudson. I was born and raised in Los Angeles and moved to Texas here in 2015. My personal, I went to USC, if there are any Trojan fans out there, and ran a business, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the business later as we get into that, but ran a business in LA, ended up selling the business, moving to Texas to do something different, and started a new business here in Texas, which I'm sure we'll talk about too today.
Yeah, and what's the name of that company you started recently?
Peak Precision Solutions.
And what does that do?
We do freight management and consulting.
Yeah.
So think of us like a consultant for supply chain management, logistics, distribution.
Very cool. Anytime you're starting something new, it requires a lot of grit. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us just, before we get into professional and what you're doing today, just tell us a little bit about your early life and really experiences that shaped who you are today.
Sure. So I'm the first in my family to go to college. So my father, both grandfathers, and my uncle were all military. So I grew up in they weren't drill sergeants, right? So don't get me wrong, but I grew up in a very disciplined, hardworking atmosphere. I remember when I first started, when I graduated college, I first started my new career, I took a sick day. I was like two or 3 months into it. And my grandfather called me up and literally grilled me. He said, I have not taken a sick day in 40 years. What are you doing taking a sick day? I'm like, what? I got mad at my mom. Like, why'd you even tell him? But, so that mindset of just hard work and grinding it out and grit, and we don't take sick days, definitely helped mold me, especially, when we're talking about grit and discipline. Yeah.
So I totally get the military background. Both my grandfathers fought in World War II. Only one of them went to college. My dad was career military. I know what it means to grow up in a military household. Right. They also weren't drill sergeants. They were officers, but totally get it. And my Aggies will be playing your Trojans here pretty soon. So by the time the podcast airs, we'll see who wins that game.
We'll have to do a whole podcast on that game for sure. Right?
So we've talked about grit, and everyone's got their own definition. I'd like to know what grit means to you, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I think of grit as discipline on steroids.
All right,
I guess the best way I can describe it. Have you ever read the book Grit?
I have.
Okay, great book, right?
Yeah.
So is it Angela
Angela Duxon, yep.
Right.
Hopefully we got that right.
I think it's Duxworth.
Duxworth, you're right.
Forgive us for butchering your name. Great book, right? She describes grit as, I believe, passion and perseverance to a long-term goal. And that's really what it is. I mean, I think a lot of people, you hear a lot of talk nowadays about motivation versus discipline, right?
Yep.
Motivation's a feeling which comes and goes. So you need to have discipline for long-term success.
Yep.
Whether it's business, working out, whatever you do. I think grit takes that discipline to a new level, or another level, I should say. Again, takes it like it's on steroids, right? So it's that perseverance and it's that mindset of if you hit an obstacle, it's an obstacle that you try to find your way around it, a solution, rather than, oh gosh, I hit an obstacle and it's over, right?
Yeah, I think this time more than ever, we really need to instill grit within ourselves and those around us. So what was the defining moment in your career that really tested your grit and determination?
Well, I'll tell you a couple. So when I first started my job out of college, I wanted to go into sales, and it was at a company called FDSI, and we were a logistics company, very similar to what I'm doing now. And I wanted to do sales, but they said, in order to go into sales, you have to do operations for 6 months. So I was the grunt operations guy at this company where nobody else had a college education. So I just graduated from USC. I had this, I went to SC. And so I went in and I had to work for a bunch of, actually 2 of them were high school dropouts. And I'm not saying that good or bad or different, just fact. They were high school dropouts, and including my boss. And I really had to suck it up, and I had to grind it out. Long story short, I decided early on that I was going to, didn't matter that I was the low man on the totem pole, I was going to be the best at my job in that particular position. I did such a good job that after 6 months, when I wanted to go into sales, the CEO came to me and said, I really want you to run the department.
That's awesome.
So that was kind of my first catalyst, I guess, for lack of a better word, for going up, moving up into the company. Eventually became VP of operations of that company and president before we sold that company.
No, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that with
Sure.
us. So as you've kind of grown in your career, how do you foster grit and resilience within your team or your organization?
I think as a leader, you obviously, you got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, right?
Totally
So they
agree
see
with
that. I think if you foster a culture that really emphasizes grit and hard work, I'm a stickler on accountability, right? If you do what you say you're going to do, right? And that goes for my entire team. And I'm also a stickler on everybody on my team understanding that I respect them. And I don't care if you're in the mailroom or in the C-suite. I respect you as an employee, as a team member, and not only as a team member, as a person. You have a family, and I want my employees or partners to feel respected and appreciated. And I think that alone will make them want to do more.
Yeah, I love it. So leading by example, but then giving them the confidence to be able to carry things forward and build the grit themselves. So what do you have to do to maintain a strong and positive mindset? Obviously, you and I have been to the gym together. I know you're pretty hardcore gym guys, so I imagine that's one of the things. But what are some of the other things that help you stay positive during times of difficulty? And
well, I mean, you mentioned the top one for me. Yeah. The gym is,
stole your thunder, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, the gym is more than just physical exercise to me. Yeah. It's really it's my therapy, right? So that's huge. I also meditate and pray quite a bit. Okay. I have a routine in the morning and a routine at night where I just get quiet, and really do some soul searching. And, it helps. I think you need to really balance mind, body, spirit, and really, and when one is off, they're all off, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is interconnected.
Right.
So no, I appreciate you sharing that. We learn a lot through failure. It's really easy when things go well, but when times go bad is when we kind of learn the most about ourselves, and that grit really has to come through. Do you mind sharing a failure that kind of taught you a valuable lesson and how you've learned from it going forward?
Sure. And, I hate using the word failure because failure sounds so ending, right? Finite. It's obstacle, right? Because really only true failure is when you quit or give up, right? You're going to hit obstacles or failures, I guess we're going to call them for now, along the way, but you can't have success without failure. It's like you can't have positive without negative or light without dark, right? They define each other. So you have to have failures to learn. What you do is you learn from that experience, course correct, move forward. Mm-hmm. Learn from the experience, course correct, move forward. And that grit mindset is what keeps you moving forward. And I think it really comes down to, having the mindset of, let me back up. They have proven that the brain will always look for validation on your core beliefs. So if you believe, I'm horrible, I'm not good, I'm this. Your brain is always looking for that evidence to validate your belief, right? So if you're constantly a pessimist,
Yeah.
you're going to look at that as a failure or block that you can't overcome. On the flip side, if you always like, I'm going to succeed, there's nothing that's going to stand in my way,
Right.
you're going to look at things differently and your brain's going to, try to validate that for your point. So specifically, a failure. I've had a few, bad decisions, obviously, that were financial. I think one of the biggest ones, a little embarrassing. So I think you remember I started a gym.
I do. I remember the F45.
I went against all my, natural instinct.
I think I trained there. It was pretty fun.
You
really
did.
good
You did train
workout
there.
for like
You did
45 minutes.
Yeah. So I started a gym because it was something I just wanted to do.
Yeah.
I've been in logistics for 35 years.
Yeah.
That's what I know. That's what I do. Right. So I started the gym right when COVID hit, which, what are two of the worst businesses you possibly have when COVID hit? A restaurant or a gym, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure other ones, but
Yeah, those were two big ones for sure.
Those are two big ones. So, and I continued to roll with it, even though it was failing, and I knew it was failing, and threw a lot of good money at bad.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I learned from that. I ended up cutting my losses, selling the business, and moving on to doing logistics, what I do best.
If you were to do it all over again, how would you change that situation?
Well, I would have. This was one of those rare incidents where I let my ego get in the way of my better judgment. So the decision was the decision, right? But I knew early on that it was a bad decision, and I probably would have cut bait early on if I could do it over again. Obviously I wouldn't have done it at all if I could do it over again, but that's not what you're asking, right? I would have got out quicker and sucked it up and sucked up the ego, right? And just let it. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think there is an element of grit, of knowing when not to exhibit grit.
Right.
Not just pushing forward at all costs, but doing it when you know you believe in it. And you talked about your core beliefs a little bit, but can you kind of share with the audience what those are when you sit and meditate? What are kind of the key things that are important to you as a human and that you want to show to the community and to your family?
Sure. Well, I think, when we talk about success, I think I think society puts a lot of emphasis on financial success, right? Because if I asked you, if we were talking about somebody and said, "Hey, Matt, how's so-and-so? Are they successful?" Immediately they're going to say, "Yeah, they're the CEO of a company and they do right." But I think, you really have to define what your definition of success is. Or I'll give you the extreme case, right? A Buddhist monk. If you ask them what their definition of success is, they're going to say spiritual enlightenment. They're not going to say financial.
Sure.
That's extreme, obviously, but everything in between. So I think what you have to do is define what success means to you. So what success means to me is being a great father, I have 4 kids, being a great husband, my faith, very involved in my church. As you know, I'm very involved in anti-human trafficking. So that is a passion of mine, to helping women and children that are being abused.
Very noble cause.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough one. It's a dark topic, obviously, as you know. But I think, when you define what success is to you, it is different for everybody, then you have a clear path on who you want to be, what you want to be, and what your legacy. I guess, right? You want your legacy to be when you move on. I don't think there's, again, financial success is great. We're that's what we're talking about, right? You're in business. I don't think there's a man or a woman on their deathbed that's ever going to say, "I wish I worked longer hours." Right? In the end. You're going to regret all the things you didn't do. Now, I think, the destination is great, and you need to be focused on the destination for that grit mindset, the long-term goal. But if you don't enjoy the process along the way, then what's the point?
Yeah, totally agree with you. There's a lot of folks that are driving on a path and not really sure why they're going there or how they're going to get there. When they get there, they're like, heck, that's not what I wanted. So I think, thanks for sharing. I think that's great that you have it clearly laid out what's important to you and why you're driving towards those goals. Any resources or mentors or people that help you develop this grit mindset that really helped you to get where you are today?
I had a very good mentor early on in my career that helped me out from the financial side. He was very driven. Well, this is a classic case of what we just talked about. I'm not going to mention any names, but
Yeah.
extremely successful.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, he was that guy. The
Yeah.
guy you want at every event that you wanted, that everyone gravitated to because he was really
Yeah.
dynamic and intelligent. Extremely successful. 8 wives.
Wow.
Okay. 6 kids that don't want anything to do with him. And I'm not saying this I'm just making a point here, right? Because he chose that financial success over everything else was the most important. And if you ask him today, and he's in his 80s,
Yeah.
and he's in a nursing home and he's not doing well, I talked to him.
That's a bummer.
I'm still keeping in touch with him. He'll still say, I mean, he's good with it. That was what he chose, and that's what he chose. So I got a little off topic here, but I think a mentor is very good. But make sure if you're gonna choose a mentor, okay, like for example, he was a great financial mentor.
Yeah.
But choose different mentors in the different areas where you want to achieve success, right? If that makes sense.
It does.
As far as resources go, read quite a bit. I mean, there's so many different books that you could read, right?
Yeah.
You can read yourself to death. But I think, a mentor is very good. For me, one of the biggest things at least in the last 15 years, is YPO.
Yeah.
I mean, being involved in YPO and being surrounded by a lot of very successful people who share pretty much the same mindset that I do, right? Being involved in a forum and being able to share those experiences. I think, they always say, there's this old saying that says, show me your 5 best friends and I'll tell you your future. And I think that's, for these young guys, who you hang out with really dictates kind of where you're going in life. So when you're hanging out with people that are successful, that want to not criticize you or bring you down, or haters, I guess for lack of a better word, right? That are really there to support you, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that's how we met, was through YPO.
That's
and
right.
being informed together, and it's
Right.
a great experience and a great group of folks.
Right.
And I think, I'd encourage our audiences, no matter who you are or what field you're in, look for a group of peers that can help really sharpen one another and improve what you do, and that really can help build grit. So totally agree. So tell us a little bit how you're applying grit to build your startup and your new organization that you've embarked on over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it is grit. As you know, startups are that is grit, right?
A lot of grittiness.
It's funny because I feel like I don't feel like I'm in my 20s again. I feel like I'm acting like I'm in my 20s again. But it's you have to keep that same mindset. I don't think the formula hasn't changed. I think where it will be easier this time around is I learned a lot along the way, right? Where you had to learn by fire the first time.
Yep.
Now you have that experience behind you. So there are things that I probably won't fail at, that I fail, and I again use the word fail in quotes because it's not final. Those roadblocks that I know how to navigate and know how to get around much quicker and easier than doing it the first time by fire. Right?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're going to do great, and wish you the best in the new venture.
Yeah, thank you.
Love to hear, an inspiring story that you've got that really has affected your perspective on grit and determination.
Inspiring story. Sure. I think. Well, I'll tell you the most recent. I don't know if this is inspiring, but this was 2011. In 2011, I was president of the company I just told you about, and I had this, call it a midlife crisis. I don't know what it is. It was on my bucket list to go get my MBA.
Yeah.
I want to get my master's. So I came in and talked to my assistant. I said, I want to go back to USC and get my master's. She's like, what are you talking about? Right? I was already running the company.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I wanted to do to enhance my career. I had, I guess you could call it, made it, at least in that world. And I will tell you this, that 2 years of running a company, being on the board in YPO, as well as getting a master's in business, was brutal. That really tested my grit, to the point where there were a couple times where I considered dropping out of school just because it was just so intense.
Yeah.
Just the workload, right?
So what made you stick with it?
Grit.
Yeah.
Grit. Just that unwavering, or maybe stupidity, or maybe stubbornness. I don't know.
I like grit better.
Grit sounds much better, right? For sure. It's that that drive of just focused on the end result and just staying, extreme discipline, right?
Yeah. So let's look at the crystal ball. Next 5-10 years, where do you see yourself, and how do you see grit playing a role in the future?
In the future, so in the next 5 years, so the business I have now is kind of a startup, but it's been going for a little while. It's logistics. It's what I've been doing for 35 years. I know it like the back of my hand. It's easy, right? I'm also starting another company, as we talked about.
Yeah.
The software's in stealth mode right now, so I can't really talk too much about it. But software's being developed right now. It's in logistics, basically in a nutshell, using AI to take care of a lot of redundant tasks within logistics. I'm very excited about that because myself with 35 years and my business partner has 35 years in logistics. So combined 70 years in logistics space, with a AI, I guess, startup. So it's not like a couple college kids saying, we have an AI startup. We're really applying the last 35 years. And what's interesting is my business partner was my VP of IT back in my old company.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So long-term trusted relationship. Someone that can apply the same level of grittiness to a startup culture.
He's a gritty guy too, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. As you think about other individuals, what qualities do you admire most in people who display true grit? When you look at someone like, man, they're really gritty. What is it that you see?
I think it's the ability to overcome adversity and to navigate through challenges.
Yeah.
Because, grit is great. When everything's going good,
Yeah.
Grit is just discipline and doing what you need to do, to the extreme.
Yeah.
When things are going bad, I think you really see what people are made of,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's what I admire most. People getting through tough situations, adversity, roadblocks, failures along the way, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
and overcoming those and moving forward with that resilience of just, I'm not going to quit.
Yeah, tough people, going through tough times.
Right.
I mean, to me, that's grit. That's what this podcast really is all about.
Right.
And so, appreciate you coming on the show. We're getting close to running out of time here, but do you have a final message you'd like to share with the audience about really developing and cultivating grit within themselves and within others?
Sure. I think, so for the younger folks, when you're starting out in your career, you really can't have much balance. If you want financial success to be part of your package, right, your strategy, you really don't have much balance. You got to pay your dues. You have to grind it out. So in the beginning, don't try to be so balanced. Just focus on work, getting what you need to do, pay your dues. Once you start getting established, then you could start talking about, maybe, if you start a family, kids, and like all the things I talk about, being a good father, getting involved in other things. But, really surround yourself with people you want to be like. I think, don't try to be the big fish in the small pond. Try to be a medium fish in a very big pond surrounded by other big fish that can help you become big fish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, those are awesome words of wisdom. I think for those that are out there just doing something for the money, if you do something you love, the money will come.
Right. And you don't have to necessarily have a passion. Like for me, I'm not passionate about moving freight. What I'm passionate about is creating solutions that drive value for my customers in supply chain management. That includes moving freight.
Yep.
Right. So don't think about, that's not very passionate. But have passion in the process and the solution you're creating value for your customers, rather than the actual thing you're doing itself.
Yeah, well, it sounds ultimately you're passionate about their success, and when
Right.
you help them be successful, you get what you want, which is your success, and
Yeah.
money follows. Well, anything we didn't cover that you wanted to share with our audience today? Any stories or final parting words?
Any stories? I will tell something real quick. So when I told you when I went into customer service in that first company and I
Yeah.
started running it, there were two partners that owned the company, both had sons my age.
Okay.
So, and they both worked for the company. And I knew early on that I wanted to run that company. So talk about, it was like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, talk about everything, all the cards stacked against me. It ended up working out well because they ended up going off on their own and doing different things. But that in the beginning, people said, you're nuts. You're never going to run that company. You got two owners. They both have sons your age. They were both being groomed to run that company.
Yeah.
And you need to just, figure out something else and move on. And I did it. I stuck with it and I proved myself. So I think whether that was stupid and I just got lucky or whether that was just pure grit and determination and it paid off, who knows? But
we're going to go with pure grit and determination.
I like it. We'll go with that. But I think, if you really feel strongly about something,
Yeah.
don't let any. But the point is, if you feel strongly about something, don't let anything hold you back. Okay.
No, that's awesome closing message. Well,
Okay.
Huddy, thanks for being my friend. Thanks for coming on
Absolutely.
the second episode of the Grit Mindset podcast.